Hi everybody! In this segment, I'll be explaining how to insult women in engineering. Now, these won't be your standard obvious insults based on sex. They'll be a little bit more discreet. Some of them, women might not even notice that you've insulted them until after the fact, when they think back on the conversation. Most of these will be for circumstances within the engineering industry, but some of them could be applied toward any woman in engineering, even if they're outside of the office. So, let's begin. We'll start with some basic insults that are pretty standard, that are very easy to understand why it's insulting. A good one to start with is to ask for a male engineer when you find out that the engineer with whom you're speaking is a woman. Men can probably explain the technical material better to you, even though both the person you're speaking to, the woman in engineering, and the man have the same degree and the same job title. You can also imply that we've received a grade, award, or promotion based on our sex or appearance. It's a good way to really undermine our confidence and make us question ourselves when something good has happened, because we don't really do that enough by our own accord. You can assume that all engineers are men by either not looking to see if it's a woman you're speaking to before you address her as sir, or addressing us as Mr. in an email. That really keeps the gender stereotype of men in engineering alive as long as possible. You can also immediately ask our marital status upon meeting us in the workplace. That reminds us of what our real purpose in life should be, which would be getting married and making babies. And of course, you should make plenty of sexist jokes around us in the workplace. It helps to alienate us and make sure that we are less effective team members. Now here are some more advanced insults. These are a little bit more discreet, and it takes some thought to really understand why it's insulting to a woman in engineering. This first more advanced insult really applies to a classroom setting or a group work assignment if you have that sort of thing in your office. You should refuse to let more than one woman work in a group. Be sure to present this under the guise that it would be unfair for one team to have more than one woman when another team doesn't have any. This implies that women are an asset, but really what you're saying is that regardless of any other differences within the group, male and female is the biggest difference. It tells us that no matter how many similarities we may have with the other people in the room, we will always be seen as women and treated as such. The next example is it can apply to any woman in engineering again. You can say things like, "Oh, you have such a bright future, especially as a woman." This is very similar to suggesting that any advancement we've made in our career is due to the fact that we're a woman, but it's disguised as a compliment, so it's more confusing. You can tell us that we would be good at a job based on the way we look as opposed to our skill set. This sounds a little odd, but I'll give you an example. For example, "Oh, you would be such a great professor. You look so smart in your glasses." Now this insult can be used by any person addressing a woman in engineering. You can say something like, "Oh, you'll understand this. You're an engineer." Now that sounds almost like a compliment, but really what you're saying is, "Oh, you'll understand this. You're an engineer. Otherwise, you'd probably be just another stupid woman who can't understand anything." You can suggest that women might not like certain aspects of engineering or fields within engineering because we would get our clothes dirty. This reminds us that our place in society should really only be based on the way we look. During a meeting, you can be sure to ask male engineers in the room to confirm a statement that any woman in engineering has made. That one's pretty self-explanatory as to why it might be insulting. Along the same lines of the previous insult, you can refuse to acknowledge an idea that a woman has had during a group meeting. until a man repeats the same idea. Then you can decide that it's a great idea and why didn't you think of it sooner? Be sure to identify us by the men in our lives, because we can't be complete individuals on our own. Now this next one is a little complicated, so it'll take a little bit of explanation. Be sure to group the women that you work with all of the other women in your lives. For example, you can refuse to invite the women that you work with to a social event outside of the office, because if you did that, you would have to invite your wife and or girlfriend. The logic here may be a little confusing. Some people might say, there isn't anything that ties the women in your life to the women in your office, other than anatomy, of course. And anatomy isn't any reason to exclude someone from a social engagement where they might form bonds and camaraderie with their workmates that could potentially impact their working relationship. Or someone might think, there isn't any reason that you should insult your wives by thinking that they are so narrow-minded and untrusting of their husbands that they would insist on attending an event just because other women are also there. Don't listen to those people. If you invite one woman to an event, all of the other women in the whole world might show up, and everyone knows that men can't have fun while a woman is around. Be sure to exclude us. Make sure that you judge us solely based on our anatomy and not our minds or personalities. There you go. You have all the material you need to go out and insult women in engineering. You can even get creative if you want and try to apply this material to any woman you come across in your life. I hope this has been useful. Best of luck. Thanks for watching. I'd like to thank all of the women who wrote in and told me about their experience as a woman in engineering. All of the situations that I described today happened to someone who wrote me, or someone I know, or myself. And they are all things that actually happened. Isn't that exciting? If you like this video, I hope you'll subscribe. Currently this channel has mostly vlogs on it from my life. That whole explanation can be seen in the first video from this channel, but I'm hoping to have more content like this as well, in addition to the vlogs. I'll also be having guest vloggers starting in, I think, 2 weeks with my friend Hannah, who some of you may have seen in a previous video, if you've watched them. You can also follow me on Twitter and friend me on Facebook. All of the information is in the description box below. Thanks for watching. See you again soon. Bye.